Trolling is a time-honored tradition, and some of the best trollings gamers do is to each other.
Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 times gamers were fooled by other gamers.
Number 10, way back in 2002, Electronic Gaming Monthly, for an April Fool's joke, wrote that you could be Sonic and Tails in Super Smash Bros. Melee through a secret method of defeating 20 or more enemies in Cruel Melee. Now, EGM was obviously lying about this. It was a trick, an outright intended joke, but a lot of gamers have used it as a source to get other gamers to do that in Super Smash Bros. Melee. Obviously later they did actually add Sonic to Smash, so it's not really something you can trick somebody into doing nowadays, but way back that was actually quite a feat. Like, you'd beat all those enemies and then you wouldn't get Sonic. EGM actually gave a bunch of people copies of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle for completing the challenge, but that's not quite the same, is it? Number 9, way back in the day, and I mean way back in the day, like 1999, a gamer claiming to be named Ariana Almondaz from Colombia claimed to have gotten the Triforce in Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Now, this wasn't exactly an elaborate trolling when you look back on it, but a lot of people were fooled by some of the screenshots that were posted. Now, the screenshots were kind of obviously fake in retrospective, and it's weird that people had to debunk it, but it also was a time when this kind of thing wasn't quite as widespread, and a lot of people also wanted to believe you could get the Triforce. But it was a pretty impressive hoax that actually went on for quite a while before people figured it out, and after people figured it out, it still kept going on. Number 8, you know how when you were playing games with people online, like when you were 6 or 7 and you would ask how to do something, or somebody would say they have some amazing new move and the keyboard combination for it is Alt F4. Yeah, you know, before you learned all the keyboard shortcuts for Windows, before you learned that closes anything. Yeah, I fell for that a few times. I'm not afraid to admit it. I was a kid, I was naive. So were you. Or maybe you weren't. Maybe you were an adult and you fell for it. I don't know. I was a kid though. Number 7, for a long time, there was a rumor that in San Andreas, you could find Bigfoot. He'd be hanging around in the wilderness. He just had to be there at the right time, or maybe randomly, or maybe, you know, a long list of things. There's actually probably a full video we could do on all the Bigfoot stuff from San Andreas, which is kind of wild. But it was a really elaborate hoax in which so many different angles were debated almost endlessly that resulted in them actually including a Bigfoot in the game a few games later. I mean, it was such a widespread thing. People were like, why haven't we found this yet? And a lot of modders took advantage of it by implanting Bigfoot into the game and like claiming that the relaunched version of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas that had all the hot coffee mod content removed Bigfoot, and that's why nobody's found it, which is like another great layer to this massive trolling. The best part is, like, who cares? When I first heard this way back in the day, I was like, okay, cool, like, great. Like, it didn't matter to me that Bigfoot was in the game at all, but it did capture people's imaginations, just like the real Bigfoot. Number 6, and this is a spoiler, but you're gonna hear it anyway, because it's been a long time since Final Fantasy VII came out. Aeris dies in the game. And not long after the game was released, somebody printed a fake interview with somebody who said he was a developer who couldn't believe that nobody had figured out how to bring her back yet. He listed off a number of steps as to how you do this, and the entire internet lost its mind. I mean, there are a lot of hoaxes for things you can do in Final Fantasy VII, but this was the big one on account this is one of the biggest plot points in the game. And you really couldn't, because it was one of the biggest plot points in the game. Like, if you were able to bring Aeris back, other than Meteor, which she maybe could have stopped, what else is there to motivate you to continue the game? It's genuinely possible that had she lived, she'd have been able to stop Meteor, so what would the point be? And yet people were like, oh, Aeris, I want to bring her back. And then they did a bunch of things that somebody had just made up, and it didn't happen. And that's pretty funny, actually. Number 5, in the Generation 1 Pokemon games, apparently, according to some, there were Poke Gods, meaning a group of Pokemon that was supposedly significantly more powerful. It basically had to do with information about Mew, who was, at the time, fairly unknown, spreading around and basically mutating. spectating. Get it? Number 4, although much later in the re-released version of Super Mario 64 for the 3DS, you could play as Luigi, there was no point in time before that which you could play as Luigi. However, that did not stop people from spreading the rumor that you could unlock Luigi in Super Mario 64. There's actually a goofy process that I have to imagine is some sort of a reference to the fact people claimed you could unlock him in the original. The closest, however, you can do to the actual Nintendo 64 version to playing as Luigi is like using a Game Shark to change the color of Mario's clothes to match Luigi's, and that's it. Number 3, another Pokemon one. The idea that pressing B increases the chance of Pokemon being caught in any of the Pokemon games. Not just like the early ones, but I've seen that kind of stuff since forever. And it's born literally of superstition. Like, there are people who can't stand the idea of waiting for an animation to complete and will jam down buttons, and it seemed to them like it happened more often when they jammed the button down. It's possible that through chance it actually did happen, but it's not because they pressed the button, it's because that's just how chance worked out. I still see people say stuff like this today, not necessarily the B button, but this is not a dead one. I've seen this trolling a lot.
Number 2, there was a rumor in Tomb Raider 2 that in the Croft mansion, you could get Lara Croft to undress. And yeah, I would think that just kind of automatically seems like something that we should be very suspect of on account it was a game made in the 1990s when there was no hope of selling a game if you couldn't get retailers to stock it, and if it was proven that that could actually happen in a game, that would be the end of that. If they had secretly included that type of a thing, it would change the game's rating, for one, which by default would make it an adults-only game, which would keep it out of most retailers just by that label, but the complaining by parents. I think people underestimate how powerful the complaining of parents was in the 1990s. But still, so many put stock into this rumor, and the original troll that started it had to have been pretty proud of themselves. Looking back, I'm not even sure why we were that over-eager to see Lara Croft in-game nude. One word: triangles.
And finally, number 1, in Super Mario Bros., a rumor was propagated that you could jump completely over a flagpole, and if you did that, you would unlock a big bunch of secret levels. The interesting part about this is that because of how the Super Mario Bros. Series progressed, there actually were a lot of levels that Americans never saw, at least until later on in the series' lifespan when they were re-released to America, and it's kind of actually fairly easy to figure out how this would have spread. If you had footage of the Japanese Super Mario Bros. 2, you could very easily paint it as the secret levels that you would get if you could completely jump over said flagpole. But that wasn't real. Pretty much none of this was. Like I said, it's people trolling. And some of it's actually pretty funny because it got a lot of people to do a lot of things that were useless. Have you ever been trolled in this way in games? Leave us a comment and let us know what you think. And if you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell. As always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.